Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Advancing Cardiac Rehab, Current Use of Technologies and Future Trends to Drive Innovation. My name is Keith Kaminsky, North American Segment Director for Health Corporate Performance for Technogym North America. As we get started, I want to highlight the mission of Technogym is to help people live better. We call ourselves the Wellness Company. And this is about regular physical activity, proper nutrition, and a positive mental approach. When Nerio Alessandri founded Technogym in 1983, the fitness world or working out in general looked very different. It was primarily about bodybuilding, which only attracted a very small percentage of the population. And so while our mission here is very end user focused about helping people move more on a regular basis, back then, and it's still true to this day, that the wellness business opportunity for operators is to create businesses to attract more of the population to move on a regular basis. And we work tirelessly to remove the barriers to exercise for everybody. Go ahead, Jason. We have a saying in Technogym, masterpieces are made of many details. And this is from our founder, Nerio Alessandri. And this influences everything we do, from the masterpiece, from driving wellness in everything that we design, from the appearance, the size, the approachability, even all the touch points. We want to make sure that we remove any barrier possible to exercise. Technogym is known for innovation. We've been first to the market on many key measures. Speaking about fitness technology and software, we started back in 1996 and actually further back in 1992 with the first treadmill that interacted speed and incline on a heart rate monitor. To this day, go ahead, Jason. We have a strategy called Wellness on the Go, which really supports this mission of driving wellness. So regardless of where you are, you could enjoy a tailored wellness experience, whether you're at the doctor for cardiac rehab, at work, at the gym, or at home. And to support this strategy, we have a comprehensive ecosystem called the My Wellness Cloud. And in this webinar, you're going to learn more about how two successful operators have taken this ecosystem and really applied it to advancing cardiac rehab. To lead us through this discussion is my colleague, Jason Jones. Jason Jones has been with Technogym for more than 10 years and actually comes from running a medical fitness facility. So he understands all the intricacies and has the voice of you as the operator in leading you through these solutions of how do we apply technology, smart equipment solutions to meeting really pressing business problems. Jason's been a pleasure and a joy to work with, and look forward to him leading our discussion here today with two of our valued customers. Take it away, Jason.
Keith, thank you so much for that great introduction, and welcome everyone to Advancing Cardiac Rehab. I've had the pleasure of working with these two individuals over the last, 8 or 9 years, and I'd like to introduce them to you right now. First is Shane Brown. Shane is the manager of wellness services for Watertown Regional Medical Center in Watertown, Wisconsin. He oversees cardiac rehab, pulmonary rehab, medical fitness, corporate fitness, and also community wellness service lines. Has his bachelor's from University of Wisconsin-La Crosse and CSCS certified. One of the interesting things about Shane is he is an ultra endurance athlete, Ironman triathlete, has participated in numerous ultra marathons, competed as a pro in Spartan races, and he ultimately lives his life by the slogan, "We'll never know our limits unless we go looking for them." And next, we have Ashan Korala. Ashan is the Director of Wellness and Innovation for Pinnacle Medical Wellness and who consults for Valley Medical Center in Renton, Washington. Ashan has his bachelor's in exercise phys from Oregon State, and he is currently pursuing his master's in healthcare administration. Ashan specializes in healthcare management, focusing specifically in outpatient therapy and IT services, and really truly believes in a holistic approach to healthcare. One of the interesting parts about things about Ashan is that he was a nationally ranked triathlete during his college career, so truly lives the wellness lifestyle, but pretty much focuses on piggyback rides for his 2 kids right now. So I'd like to start off first by allowing our 2 panelists to tell us a little bit about their business and their delivery of cardiac rehabilitation in their medical centers. So Shane, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about your programming there at Watertown Regional Medical Center.
Yeah, so Watertown Regional Medical Center, just to give people kind of an idea of what type of facility we are a 100-plus-year-old community hospital. We are located roughly halfway between Madison, Wisconsin and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're a fairly rural area. Watertown itself is about 25,000 people. And again, we're a smaller community hospital, but we have a pretty strong medical fitness facility that houses a variety of different services, including our cardiac rehab service. So within the facility, we offer phase 1 and phase 2 cardiac rehab. We have a really robust medical fitness program that we utilize the full gambit of the technologies that we'll be talking about today within that program. We have an incredibly comprehensive lifestyle management program called One Wellness that we've delved into a lot with this technology as well, that we'll be talking more about, and a whole host of other services, from medical nutrition therapy to diabetes education, pulmonary rehab, as well as those lifestyle-based programs as well.
Awesome, thank you, Shane. And the picture I see down below is your facility that you guys grew into about 6 or 7 years ago in starting these programs. So thank you for sharing that. Ashan, let's move to you now and tell us a little bit about your program and your delivery there at University of Washington Valley Medical Center.
Awesome, thanks, Jason. Yeah, we are located in Renton, Washington, which is just outside of Seattle. The hospital holds about 350 beds. So over the last couple months, we have increased that volume. We have a 5-team practice in cardiac rehab with 2 RNs and 3 exercise specialists, with a medical director who reviews our patients' progress, with every 30 days. We see a wide variety of patients, from high acuity LVADs to TAVRs and stents that we do in-house at Valley Medical Center. A majority of our patients are CABG patients that we see. Our typical volume averages anywhere between 50 and 70 patients, depending on the season. We traditionally run a group orientation program and our program will go for the core of it will go for about 12 weeks. Pinnacle actually took over the management of this cardiac rehab program in 2015. So, and our big mission has been to successfully deliver a comprehensive healthcare plan, which we'll talk about it a little bit later.
Awesome, thank you so much, Ashan. So, appreciate the introductions, guys. I'm sure that a lot of us on this call can see the alignment in maybe the size of the medical center that you're involved with. So really, let's talk about why we're here today, which is, the use of technology in driving innovation. So, I've had the opportunity to visit hundreds of cardiac rehab programs around the country over the last 10 years. And it's really interesting that I get to see a real wide variety of the different things that are offered. But what's interesting is that I start to see little bits and pieces that are missing from that traditional cardiac rehab care pathway. And so I'd like to open this up to the panel and to give your opinions on what's missing from the traditional cardiac rehab care pathway. And Ashan, I'd like to start with you on that.
For sure. Yeah, back in 2010, I was working in a cardiac rehab, and one of the things that I used to see often was the same patient would come back through the program every, say, 3 to 5 years, and I felt like that was a real problem for us, and I identified that this is actually an issue where we treat the event of a heart attack or a bypass surgery as this singular incident, kind of like a car accident, where we want to fix the damage that happened to the heart or the car, and then once that has fixed, everything should just go back to normal. But that's not the case in a lot of these events. This is learned behaviors that over years and years of misuse has led us to having, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, not exercising. And so our approach has been to really incorporate lifestyle into how we make these changes. And we really want to use medicine to address their whole healthcare continuum, where we focus on really bridging all of the gaps that are in a traditional medical model, where you see a primary care physician or you see your cardiologist. We want to be able to say that we know your overall medical history, we know where your behavior choices excel and where you might have some deficiencies, and we want to help you through that entire process. And we've really capitalized on using the data and technology that Technogym provides to educate our patients and have them really understand what their body's going through and how to make those long-term changes. So this isn't something that we don't see the same person 3 to 5 years later back in our program. We want to make those changes last a lifetime.
Absolutely. And so I know that that's exactly what you're referring to in the comprehensive care delivery versus siloed care, and a strong foundation of education, and really driving home, this is a screenshot from just a general exercise bout where you've collected heart rate data on a patient. Is that what I'm looking at here?
Yeah, this is an example of a patient that we use Team Beats with, which is a Technogym system that allows the patient to see how their heart rate is responding to the given exercise. We have that live in session, so that way as they're exercising, we can know what their heart rates are, and we actually are monitoring them on an EKG monitor as well. So if we see any changes in rhythm, we know how to clinically manage that. But a big tool for us is having the patient understand, hey, I'm actually doing okay when I'm pushing myself to this, to what is a new limit, or what they probably haven't pushed themselves to in a long time. Or on the other side, oh, I'm pushing myself a little bit too hard and I need to back it down. So when they go out into the real world, they are comfortable and they're confident in knowing how hard they can actually push their bodies, especially 2 to 3 weeks post surgery or post event, and then our programs are really designed to help them grow way into, a 6 months, a year past their event, and really incorporate how their lifestyle has changed after the event.
Absolutely. Fabulous, Ashan. So Shane, I'd like to ask you the same question. What is missing, in your opinion, from the traditional cardiac rehab care delivery?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And the thing that we've noticed most recently is the ability of traditional center-based cardiac rehab programs to extend beyond the walls of our facility for a variety of reasons, whether it be facing the scenario that we are now. Wisconsin is in a stay-at-home situation right now. We haven't been providing cardiac rehab in our center for about 6 weeks, and we're not 100% sure when that is going to resume. And one of the traditional limitations of cardiac rehab has been it is a center-based service, and we have amazing tools. As Ashan mentioned, we use all those same tools here in Watertown as well through Technogym and have those capabilities. But for whatever the barrier might be, whether it be due to the present situation or other barriers that we encounter with our cardiac rehab patient population. How do we extend outside of our building? And in many of our other programs where we utilize the full spectrum of the TechnoGym ecosystem and all the ways that that technology can allow us to do that, we've really during this time taken that model and applied it to our cardiac rehab population, because those individuals still need to be rehabbing. You know, many of those people were just flat cut off in the middle of their 12-week process. How do we continue to connect with those people? Because they still need that guidance, they still need the support, they still need effective exercise. We still need to be able to collect data on them in some way to make sure that even though they're not in our facility, the things that we're delivering to them are being followed and being performed effectively in any venue, and not just in this situation, but you know, in the future. You know, if you have people in a rural setting like we have, if there's a transportation barrier where people can't get to your center, or you're working with somebody who qualifies for cardiac rehab but potentially is a working age individual and has to be at work during your normal business hours, how do we overcome some of those barriers using these different pieces of technology, both to prescribe and to collect data effectively?
Absolutely fabulous. Really appreciate those two answers. And you know, you guys have been hinting on you know, what we want to talk about next, which was my next question of what technologies have you implemented to help deliver this new experience? Because ultimately, you know, it is an experience. We know that, you know, the delivery of healthcare is an experience for the patient. And so we want that experience to be good. We want it to be valuable. We want to, you know, help them live a healthier lifestyle. And so you guys have already started on this. So let's go ahead and dive into this next with Ashan. I'm going to let you go first with, you know, what technologies have you implemented to help with this experience?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones that we initially implemented was utilizing Prescribe. I think that was a big advantage for us to have a protocol put in place where we can prescribe the patient the graded exercise test, and we can see how they are progressing. Even from a staffing perspective, it's a quick way for us to use the TechnoGym key, plug it into a treadmill, and have them start their progression. So we know that the speed and incline are increasing right on time, and that way we can focus on getting the other biometrics like blood pressure and what their rate of perceived exertion is, without us having to do a bunch of running back and forth between documenting what their speed is and how that's changing. The TechnoGym treadmills just collect all of that data and send it right to their My Wellness account, which is great. Team Beats, as I was talking about before, has been a huge factor in training the patient to really learn and understand, how does my heart rate actually respond to this activity or to this workout that I'm doing? How does my heart rate, because some people's heart rates when they're on a rowing machine would be totally different than when they're up on a treadmill or an elliptical. And so having them understand how their body responds to that exercise, what are the large muscle groups that are being used, and having live feedback straight in front of their face really helps with teaching them. And so, and a big part of our model is really educating the patient to learn and to understand how their body is now working today, not how it used to work when they were in high school, how it used to work when they were an avid exerciser, but today, what does your body actually look like, and how does it respond to the stimulants that we put into our programs? And overall, that provides a great experience for the patient. It provides a great experience from our staff, because we feel like we're actually doing something meaningful and treating that patient in an individualized manner. And so and I think, just being able to use the technologies overall has allowed us to be really efficient. I have touched on a little bit before, we have an average of 50 to 70 patients in a day, which with just 5 staff has sometimes can seem impossible, but technology has really allowed us to maximize our potential by having the data actually be pulled in through My Wellness, delivering the all the information that we need, and still getting the best patient care possible. So that's been those have been the ways we've utilized technology so far.
That's awesome, Ashan. One quick question I have is, you mentioned the staffing model of 5 people, basically handling an average of 60 patients a day. What are the, can you give me, are those, 3 exercise physiologists and 2 RNs? What is the?
Yep. So we have 2 RNs who supervise the patients that come in through cardiac rehab. Their focus is typically more on the high acuity patients, like like the LVADs that might come in, or the low EF patients that we work with often. Our exercise specialists really focus on the delivery and the quality of the patient's experience. So they
Awesome.
work in tandem together. All of them manage their own caseloads, but from an overall team approach, it just allows our model to see a higher volume than we had in the past. So that has been a
awesome
great use of the technology.
Perfect. So Shane, I know that you have a big opinion on the use of technology. So I'm going to transition to you here. And what technologies do you use, and how do you use them?
Yeah, well, we use a variety of different things. Anytime we talk about extending beyond the walls of our facility, I want to deliver the same experience to those individuals that they would have if they were here in person, and every component of our programming. And some of the ones that I'll just touch on and not go into too great of detail is, how do we deliver education to those individuals still, and how are we using technology to do that? Regardless of the reason that you need to deliver it in an extended capacity. I think this time has shown us that tools like YouTube for delivering education, I have a class this evening that I'm teaching via teleconference platform, and I'll record it to YouTube as I'm doing it, so that anybody who couldn't attend it live on teleconference is still going to get that education later. And how do we send out supplemental materials, whether it be PowerPoint or PDF or whatever it might be, to go along with that via email to individuals, using those teleconferencing platforms to do some face-to-face consultation about an individual's exercise program and their progress through cardiac rehab or through one of our other services. So, but when we really get down to the nuts and bolts of exercise prescription, there's 2 things that I really need to see. One is, how specifically am I addressing the needs of the patient and the goals of the patient, and what tools do they have access to? And how am I using those tools to be able to give them the experience that they would have, or a similar experience to what they would have if they were in our center, regardless of where they are. So utilizing the prescribe function on the My Wellness platform, I can give them the exact exercises, the exact volume that I want them doing. They can watch a video from their smartphone to see what the exercise form is. So it really takes all the guesswork out of the delivery of the exercise prescription. The other piece that I want to see and be able to replicate in the same way as if that individual were working with me one-on-one in our center is, how am I showing that they are actually doing this thing that I'm prescribing to them? How am I collecting that data? What is the feedback mechanism? So the My Wellness technology allows them to not only verify as they're doing the exercise that, yep, I've completed it, but if we pair that with a heart rate monitor, it's going to demonstrate to me that as they're completing it that, yeah, you had an elevated heart rate, you were in this zone. And we can do that all through their smartphone and with a compatible Bluetooth heart rate monitor. We use GPS technology pretty extensively, so wearable, whether it be Garmin or Apple Watch or or you name it, that we're linking into the platform. So if somebody's exercising outdoors, whether it's going out for a hike or a bike ride or whatever it might be, and they're live tracking a session, all that data dumps in as well and uploads, and we can say, okay, I want you riding your bike for 30 minutes today at this zone. They go out and do it, and then I have the feedback to be able to analyze that later. We also use the platform to be able to assign total movement goals. So how much movement are you doing during the course of the day, not just in your exercise prescription, but additional lifestyle movement throughout the day, and are you doing the appropriate total amount of physical activity that you need to be able to recover and to be able to meet your goals really effectively. So having the ability to do both those things is really what we need to do to be able to replicate cardiac rehab outside of our walls, and any of our other lifestyle programs that we deliver as well. Is how are you delivering, and then how are you collecting that information to prove that it's being done. I can give you an effective exercise prescription to meet any goal, but you have to show me that you're doing it.
Right. Absolutely. And you know, I heard an interesting statistic the other day that this shutdown has advanced us further in technology 5 years from where, you know, we started before we were all at this, you know, stay at home. We've all learned how to use Zoom. We've all, you know, been a little bit more reliant on smartphones. So do you see that, you know, in the utilization of My Wellness, you know, from their smartphone? Do you have any, you know, do your patients, you know, integrate with that pretty easily?
Yeah, definitely. You know, our programs that we've really honed these tools in over the last 8 years, they never missed a beat. It's like we closed our doors on the fitness facility and it didn't even matter. We just continued on using those tools in the exact same format, because a lot of those people that we're delivering programming to never stepped foot in our facility anyway, and we're delivering effective programming to them using these tools. So taking that model and applying it to cardiac rehab was not difficult, because we already knew exactly what we were doing. You know, and one example I will give with some of the individuals in our cardiac rehab program, you know, not only are they not coming into our facility, but not all of them are even at home. You know, we have one gentleman who decided during this time he was going to go to his cabin in northern Wisconsin and ride this out. And he's using the system from his cabin in northern Wisconsin just as effectively as if he were here in our facility. So, you know, people are already using the pieces of technology that we need to use to deliver this. We just need to link them up with the right tools and the right process to make it effective.
Absolutely. That's a great example, Shane, of just phenomenal use of the tools that you have and the technology in My Wellness. So let's take this a step further. I know each of you, you know, whether they're, you know, new people coming into cardiac rehab, people that are graduating, you offer other step-down programs, you know, with your delivery of cardiac rehab. So I'd like for you guys to talk about those a little bit, and, you know, knowing that, you know, the data that you collect on the patient during cardiac rehab is perfectly relatable to the step-down program that you deliver to develop them into more of an independent exercise setting. So Ashan, I'm going to start with you. You have a great graphic up here of a cardiac rehab pathway. Talk about the step-down programs that you offer.
Yeah, I think it really starts with our approach to cardiac rehab is not the same as a traditional phase 2 program. We have really focused on reinventing how anyone approaches phase 2 cardiac rehab. And so because of that, we've incorporated our quote unquote step down programs right at the beginning of a cardiac rehab program. So it starts with having the patient learn about all of our services when it, you know, which includes lifestyle medicine services and physical therapy and nutrition counseling. And we have a one-on-one nursing assessment that we assess, does this specific patient need any of these additional services to help them be successful, not just in our in the 12 weeks of our program, but throughout their entire life. And so we have sort of dismantled the traditional phase 2 program and put back together a more comprehensive model altogether. And that's why I think makes our program slightly different, is because it allows us then to, from the very beginning, in phase 2A, I guess is what we call it, is introducing the lifestyle medicine principles, and we actually incorporate the our lifestyle medicine exercise specialists into the program and have them set up a My Wellness account. We get them on a SCOSH heart rate monitor, which allows them to come in and exercise and be in a supervised environment, but progress their exercise programs at a faster rate. A traditional cardiac rehab model usually will have people exercise 3 times a week for and the class or the sessions are usually about an hour. We all know that exercise is traditionally recommended to get about 150 minutes of exercise per week at your target heart rate range, and so that's almost an impossible task, especially for somebody who's coming off a recent heart event. So we provide that ability to exercise on Monday through Friday within our lifestyle medicine facility, and we have them progress in a guided, supervised manner. And that's where My Wellness really plays a key role. Is it helps us to really progress that patient based off of their compliance, based off of how they are progressing into Lifestyle 365, which is our traditional program that has been is what a traditional phase 3 patient would go into. So right. As they progress through the cardiac rehab program, eventually they'll be in Lifestyle 365, but it would feel very seamless for them, that they have now adopted all of the technologies and equipment and know how to access everything that they need. And now it's just really our exercise specialists who are managing their care and giving them exactly the information that they need when it comes to talking about exercise prescription, but also talking about behavior changes. We address components of nutrition. We address, like smoking cessation, if that's an issue. And we really start to look at what are the other components that we can implement in their lifestyle to make them truly successful. So even after the program, we have Healthy Foundations, which includes physical therapy and registered dietitian, which will guide them through that those facets of their overall health. And then we have well coaches as well, which really just address the overall vision for the patient. What are your long-term goals? How do we help you accomplish those things? And what's the best way that we know that you can be successful? And so we use technology in a lot of those ways, but also have just really incorporated all of lifestyle medicine into this practice of cardiac rehab.
Absolutely, that's fabulous. And one of the unique things that I see on your roadmap here is that you start guiding people into independent exercise even before they reach their 36 visits, which is phenomenal. And you're utilizing technology to deliver that independent exercise program, ultimately removing barriers and then adding other services like physical therapy into this, because we all know that some patients need a little more assistance. Maybe they're having some other orthopedic issues that they need to overcome in order to get their heart rate up to a certain level. So fabulous. Shane, let me move to you with this.
Yeah, so as far as integrating some of those other services with our traditional phase 2 model, our phase 2 center-based program is really integrated into our medical fitness facility. It's a portion of our medical fitness facility. Those patients flow in and out as necessary. So while cardiac rehab does have its own designated area, their arms reach away from those individuals who participate in our medical fitness program, which is really the step down after cardiac rehab, and much like Ashan said, is what you would consider a phase 3 program in many places. But that program as well is far more than just phase 3 cardiac rehab. Really, anybody in the community can enroll in that program and participate in that program if they're looking for that prescriptive exercise that's really built into what we do. Everybody who is a part of that program receives an exercise prescription. It's supervised by our fitness specialists who are delivering and creating those exercise prescriptions and guiding people when they're in our facility. And we have a really high conversion rate from cardiac rehab into those programs. The other program that we have that I don't consider a step down, is more of a step up program, is our One Wellness program. And that's the one, like I mentioned earlier, where we've really extensively worked with the full spectrum of these tools for a number of years. And that's a 12-month program that integrates many of the components like Ashan was talking about, with wellness coaches and with dietitians. And we're using other pieces of technology beyond the TechnoGym system as well to really delve in with people. If it's somebody who is coming into that program post cardiac rehab, what is the lifestyle that you were living that led you to cardiac rehab? And certainly we can't anticipate that that's going to turn around in just those 12 weeks. As good as my exercise physiologists are, they get one visit with the dietitian and they get 12 weeks of cardiac rehab, and we're trying to reverse years of potentially bad habits that led them down that path. So what One Wellness does, it continues to build on that education. We've got a 12-month curriculum with it. We've got a team of a variety of aspects with the wellness coaches and dietitians, in addition to the exercise specialists built in there, to really work on that with people and to say, okay, where do you want to go, and how do we continue to build on those tools? And really that program was created in an effort to prevent people from ever going to cardiac rehab to begin with. If I had my way, that's the program everybody would go into, and eventually we wouldn't need cardiac rehab anymore. But really, those programs allow us to address those needs of those patients in a full spectrum. And also when people are finishing their traditional center-based program, again, if it's not appropriate or you don't have the ability to continue exercising in our facility, we can still reach you with those programs and the way we use technology beyond our four walls.
I think I learned from you the other day that one of your members lives and works in Taiwan.
Correct. Yeah. And that's, that, again, we're using the apps, we're using the exercise prescription delivery, we're collecting information on that individual and what they're doing through the tools. And, it doesn't matter if they're on the other side of Watertown or the other side of the world, we can use them in the same way.
Absolutely. So great segue into really our last question, because we're in an interesting time right now. Some of us are closed to operations. Some of us are running in a limited capacity. But you guys have been planning for this for a long time. You've been collecting data for a long time, which will give us leverage to extending our services. So Shane, I'd like to start with you on this next question. How do you see cardiac rehab pivoting after center-based services resume?
Yeah, well, I think you're going to see more and more people taking a serious look at what is this home-based cardiac rehab model? What do we need to do to replicate center-based cardiac rehab in a variety of environments, and how do we leverage that? And what do we ultimately need to do to legitimize that? And I think it is the data. It's not just the delivery of the exercise, but it's proving that these individuals are really doing what's being prescribed in a variety of venues and for a variety of reasons. So whether it's the present situation that we find ourselves in, or one of those other barriers that I discussed earlier, whether it be business hours that don't line up with a working age patient, or a transportation issue with a patient who doesn't have access to public transit to get to your program, or whatever the case may be, those individuals still need care. And that, I think if any program really looked at their numbers, how many people do you lose to other barriers involving not being able to come to your facility or come during your business hours, there's a lot of opportunity there. And this situation has given us the ability to really dive into that a little bit deeper, because now we've got 50 patients who are sitting at home and are a captive audience. And I think you're going to see more and more programs beginning to explore what that means, even though that reimbursement isn't necessarily there yet. Now's the real opportunity for us to look at how do we replicate that in a manner that when reimbursement is available, that we can roll those programs out. I think it also extends your capacity, that you can have a hybrid model. You know, somebody could attend your program 1, 2, maybe 3 days a week and be able to do some things additionally at home, or if they have a membership at another fitness facility prior to becoming a cardiac rehab patient, you know, how do we continue to combine that? Or are they doing outdoor exercise on the days that they're not coming to center-based cardiac rehab? It really allows you to then extend your capacity. You know, potentially if a patient only needs to come for supervised exercise 1 day a week, and we have the opportunity to deliver them exercise multiple days a week, well, now instead of seeing 50 patients, I can see 150 patients in a week. And then, absolutely, you know, the last point that I would make is that it allows us to enhance compliance with those patients. If I'm delivering you an exercise prescription and you're doing it not in my supervision, but you're doing it using tools that prove to me that you're doing the exercise, it's pretty black and white. The patient can't say, yeah, I did my home exercise. Well, show me that you did it. And the more we use these tools and the more we integrate these tools into traditional cardiac rehab, the more capabilities we're going to have.
Absolutely. So we can no longer put our Fitbit on our dog's collar and say that we've done exercise. You know, I wanted to put up this graphic, Shane, that you provided to me, because basically what it's showing is you've delivered an exercise program to someone at home. They have an elliptical at home, and then they're going to do a variety of other exercises. They check those off as they do them, but to prove that they're doing them, you get to see their heart rate response in the below graphic as they progress through the exercises. So this is something that you use right now, correct?
Yep, that is an actual screenshot that I pulled out of a patient's profile with their heart rate from doing those exact exercises. Yep.
Awesome, awesome, fabulous stuff. So Ashan, we'll transition to you. So how do you see, you know, things changing, the environment changing after, you know, center-based cardiac rehab is able to resume?
Yeah, I actually think from our perspective, I really feel like cardiac rehab and the scope of practice is going to expand significantly. A big part of our practice has been and will continue to be, how do we really address the root causes, the underlying issues of what happens to our patients, and why do they get high cholesterol? Why do they have high blood pressure that cause this event of a heart attack or whatever it ends up being? And so really looking to in that light of how do we even address from a prevention model. Prevention is a huge key to reducing the health outcomes of our society in general, and so having our programs address continuing to to increase exercise quality and to incorporate our services from a holistic approach really gives us that that strength of saying, now we're not just treating the specific heart event, we're also treating your diabetes, we're also treating your high blood pressure, we're also treating all of these things that have in combination is what's resulting in you being in a traditional, in a phase 2 program. And so that's where I feel like we are going, and how I see us expanding our programs is to really help patients understand that this is we're addressing their overall health. We're not just here to help their heart recover from surgery. We're here to help them live a long, healthy life, and that has a ton of benefits. You know, one is from the patient side. I think there's the other from a healthcare organization's perspective. That's reducing cost in, you know, as far as having the patient come back through an ER again and again. It's also increasing revenue. So those are big ways that I think we are going to see cardiac rehab programs transform, at least in the Northwest area.
Yep, and I love the term that you used here of meeting the patient, meeting the client throughout their entire wellness ecosystem. That's absolutely phenomenal. So we're coming up on 45 minutes here. We appreciate everybody that's you know, taking the time today. I want to give each of the panelists just one more couple minutes to address some key takeaways from here, because you know, we're really you know, the point of this webinar was to, you know, talk about what traditionally exists, but then also, you know, what technologies exist out there that can expand our services and create a better experience for the patient, you know, through the Technogym My Wellness System, you know, or other technologies. So guys, I'm going to let you present a couple of key takeaways and any advice that you'd like to give our audience today.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think a big component that Shane and I both feel strongly about is let's not be passive participants in the delivery of healthcare. Exercise is something that is a medicine, and it should be delivered in that way. And so we strongly believe that that the data that is provided through My Wellness and that type of platform gives us the ability now to actually see how this person's heart rate is responding to the exercise, so we can program them differently based off of their actual responses and how hard they're actually working. So I think that's a huge advancement in the delivery of exercise in general, but especially when it comes to these high-risk patients is a key component. And then I would say my last thing is treating the patient as a whole person, you know, and really focusing on all of the behaviors that need to change in order to drive success is a big component for us, and is a huge way that we've seen patients learn to grow and actually make the long-term changes. So as we continue to utilize technology, we can provide that feedback, we can create this wellness ecosystem that really delivers a comprehensive model. That way the patient always staying connected with our healthcare organization. They you know, when a event should arise, they're coming to us because they know that we have the most information about who they are and what they have been doing, you know, throughout their program, and it's just shown to be effective from how we deliver our cardiac rehab model and lifestyle medicine services in general.
Absolutely. I love that last point, because you know, some patients feel they're very skeptical about, you know, maybe even transitioning to a different program. But if they know that you've had, you know, tremendous, you know, awesome access to their data, and they feel more comfortable in moving along to those step down programs. So Shane, what are some of your key takeaways? Any advice that you'd like to give?
Yeah, you know, in regards to what we're doing right now in Watertown with our home-based cardiac rehab program, it's not something that we've decided to take on because there's dollars there for it. Right now, there are no dollars there for it. We've taken it on because it's the right thing to do for our patients, because there's a need there and because there's opportunity there. And I would really encourage programs to start thinking ahead of what's reimbursable and think more about what's needed and what are we going to need in the future, if not right now immediately, and how can that benefit us. You know, and the parallel that I like to draw with that is with the supervised exercise therapy for PAD programming that's begun to be incorporated into many cardiac rehab programs. That has only in the last few years become reimbursable by Medicare and by private insurances. But that's something that in Watertown we were doing for many years as a cash-based option for patients who needed it at a very reasonable rate. But we knew that there was a population there that needed it, that didn't qualify for cardiac rehab, and we had to address that. And when it became reimbursable, it was like flipping on a light switch. We already had a program, we made a few little tweaks, and away we go. And I think that home-based cardiac rehab is something that is coming. And I think it's something that is going to be reimbursable. And if you're working to develop what does that look like now, you're going to be ahead of the game when they make the decision that you can now bill Medicare and you can now bill private insurances for this. If you're starting to create programs or options once reimbursement becomes available, you're already behind the game. So plan ahead of that reimbursement. The other thing is delivering effective exercise in every environment. So that means if it's somebody that's in your center, how are you providing effective prescriptive exercise, as Ashan mentioned? If they're not able to come to your center due to whatever barrier, how am I still providing effective prescribed exercise, whether it's them exercising in their own home, in another exercise facility that they have access to, if it's somebody traveling, utilizing a hotel gym. We have the technologies there to do it and to prove that that individual is doing what's been prescribed to them. And that's how we demonstrate that patient compliance, is by using these tools effectively, whether it's a combination of a wearable or a movement tracking device in your phone, or GPS monitoring, or heart rate, or the My Wellness Prescribe, or any combination of those things that an individual has access to. And the more of those things that we can use, the more evidence that it provides that home-based cardiac rehab can be effective and can be part of this model, in addition to these center-based services that we're talking about and that so many people are traditionally doing. And it can just be another arm of our business. But until we have that evidence that this is effective, it won't become reimbursable. So we have to start doing some of this work now to demonstrate that, yeah, we can get outcomes, and I can show you that my patients are exercising even though they're not in the hospital or in cardiac rehab directly in front of us.
Absolutely. Fabulous, fabulous point right there. And guys, I want to thank you for sharing your insight, sharing even some of your, proprietary programs that you've built. This has been fabulous information. So thank you for sharing with us today. Keith, I'm going to turn it over back to you, and then we will progress with the presentation.
Great. So thank you, everyone. Ashan and Shane, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to work with you, and thank you for providing all these practical insights, for being on the front lines, serving patients and making a difference in their lives. And hopefully everyone on this webinar took away some things for them to think about and also apply in your own centers. So we have a lot of questions that we'll get to here in a second. But from a next step perspective, if you would like to learn more about how we could help advance your own cardiac rehab practice, please reach out to me and we'll coordinate with the appropriate local rep someone from our digital specialist team, whether that's in the United States or internationally, and to make sure we have a conversation to understand your specific needs and put a plan in place to serve you. So we're going to get to some questions here, and there are a lot of questions that come up. One, Ginny asked a lot of great questions, and a lot of them were answered as we went, but she does have a final question that we'll get to here. But first question is Michelle from Italy, who actually runs a medical fitness center there and was saying some good things. They've been using the My Wellness Cloud for 4 years now, Prescribe in particular, thinking that it works very well. But they wanted to ask if there's any enhancements for the software that you would recommend based on COVID-19 and the shutdown. Now, before we kick it over to Ashan and Shane, I do want to mention that there's some really cool enhancements coming with the My Wellness Cloud within days. So we'll connect you with the appropriate local resources to learn about what we're releasing to support operators as they start to open back up. So we've got some cool things coming, but pitching it over to Ashan and Shane. And Ashan, let's start with you. Is there anything that you would recommend in terms of changes or enhancements to the platform that you're using now?
So far, I think what has been really useful is the ability to engage with the like the challenges and workouts of the days, and those types of things are useful tools when we're trying to push exercises or programming out. We've been able to deliver a high, medium, and low programs that our members can participate in every day if they wish. It also gives us the ability to track all of the data that we would normally want to. I think probably if we're looking at what are suggestions or advancements in moving the My Wellness platform forward, I think some of the things would be if there is a way for us to push questionnaires to the patients and really be able to see that information come back in a meaningful way, so that way we can get answers on how well they're engaged, based off of our delivery. Right now we're using just a direct form of communication, but that would be maybe a suggestion that I might have.
Great. Thanks, Ashan. And actually, there is a way we could serve you on that. We won't get into the details, but we'll follow up with you directly about how you could accomplish that today with no further enhancement needed. Shane, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think the analogy that answers that question best, many years ago, one of the colleagues at Technogym, when explaining My Wellness to me, said, it's a little bit like trying to drink out of a fire hose. And I'm sure Keith and Jason, you probably know the person that likes to use that analogy. But it's how do you want to use it, and how is it going to be effective for your population? And we use so many different little nuances of the system to really dial in our own programs. Some of the things that we use pretty in depth that I really enjoy is the coach function, because I can really see what a person is doing on a day-to-day basis in everything that they're doing through coach. I can message back and forth with them. So on an individual basis, that's an incredibly powerful tool. And the other neat thing that I think has some good application during this time that goes hand in hand with Prescribe is the ability to create your own exercises in the system. The library of exercises is pretty extensive. I don't know if there's 3,000 exercises or something like that we use pretty regularly in our facility. I'm sure there's more than that available. But if there's something that's not in there, I can take a video with my iPad and create it into the system and deliver it to a patient who's at home or elsewhere, as if they were in our facility. If they say, hey, I have this goofy piece of equipment that I want an exercise for, I can make a video and add it to their exercise prescription. So in times like these, that's pretty powerful too.
Thank you, Shane. Just a quick comment. One of the big improvements that we've made over the last 12 months, and especially now with COVID-19, is getting facilities up and running much faster. Since COVID-19 happened, our digital team of 5 people have actually signed on more than 100 new facilities with the My Wellness Cloud. That wasn't possible before, so there's been an incredible amount of work to streamline, to clarify, and to ask really good questions on the front end to help you understand how you want to use the platform. So Shane, you've been a customer for a long time. We've really simplified the process for anyone new coming on. Final question from Michelle is, do you think it's interesting, or do you do this in terms of adding functional evaluation test data into the platform? Is that something that you do now? And Shane, do you want to take the lead on this first?
So in terms of actually evaluating our patients and how we're utilizing that, we do it in a couple different ways. We do it a lot with our strength testing. We do it a lot with aerobic testing and tracking over time improvements. We have some of our own protocols that we use for doing that. But then once you have that information in the system begins to learn about the individual and allows you to more effectively prescribe what you're doing in their exercise program. So, that's something that I think is very useful, whether it's using the built-in protocols or a proprietary protocol that gives you the results you're looking for. Once that system has that information about the individual, it gives you that ability to prescribe more effectively, and that's something that we do use fairly extensively in our different programming.
Right, so you're already doing it, Shane, great. Ashan, anything to add?
Yeah, actually, part of the My Wellness platform has the section about certain dysfunctions or in the testing section. And one of the things that we use is our PTs and our exercise specialists all manage the patient's plan of care through My Wellness. So that way, if we are seeing if we're doing a functional assessment through our physical therapist, they can note what are the things to stay away from, what are the things to really work on or focus on right there in My Wellness. So that's been a useful tool that allows us to not have to do like a team rounding where everybody meets in person. We can just have that information documented specifically in My Wellness, and that way the patient or the ES can run with the programming and changes needed. So that's been a useful tool for us.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Bob Boone. For those who don't know, Bob Boone is the president of the Medical Fitness Association based here in the United States, and would just encourage everyone to check out the Medical Fitness Association. They're an amazing reference point for standards, programs, and implementing medical fitness in your facility. So Bob, thanks for your question, and it is, what's the status of reimbursement for these remote sessions? And Shane, I believe you addressed this at the end, but could you just recap where things stand in regards to reimbursement on remote sessions?
Yeah, as it relates to cardiac rehab, the latest that I had heard, I know AACVPR was pushing CMS to have some reimbursement available for telehealth. And to my knowledge, that request was declined at this time. As far as we know in relation to phase 2, I'm not aware that there is reimbursement yet. But because we have the ability in conjunction with some of our other revenue generating programs to provide staffing to be able to provide this service in the meantime, we can begin to develop that model of what we want home-based cardiac rehab to be, so that we can prove that it should be reimbursed, and hopefully that's coming soon. But to my knowledge, there isn't currently reimbursement available for phase 2.
Well, as you mentioned, now's the time to get ready before it becomes available.
Yep, exactly.
Perfect. We have a question from Colette. How do you educate, calculate target heart rate for exercising? Ashan, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that. So there's a couple different ways that we can do that. Typically, what we've followed is the the tool in My Wellness itself, you can actually put in their the patient's age and their risk factors. We also have a guide based off of their whatever their event was. So based off of if they are high risk, moderate risk, or low risk, then we put in a certain target heart rate that we wish to have them exercise at. You can actually put that in My Wellness, so as their target heart rate, so it lets us know, hey, they're approaching their max exercise tolerance for this exercise, so it allows us to back them down in that way. So so there's a couple different tools that we end up using, but predominantly we'll follow our algorithm for based off of their risk factors.
Great. Thank you, Ashan. Shane, anything to add there?
No, I mean, we're doing very similar things. I think the other thing to keep in mind, when you're especially dealing with cardiac rehab populations is, standard equations don't apply to everybody based on certain medications they may be utilizing. But the thing that the system does allow us to do is specify those ranges that are appropriate per individual rather than a blanket equation for everybody.
All right, thank you. We have a question from Rose. Could you revisit the topic regarding the staffing model used and division of the work? So Shane, why don't you start with that one, then we'll go to Ashan.
Yeah, well, our standard staffing model for cardiac rehab, when we're talking about our center-based program, we run our entire program with 4 exercise physiologists. They do a case management model, so each individual case manages 10 to 15 patients at a time. We have capacity for up to 50 patients in our standard phase 2 program. When we start to talk about home-based cardiac rehab and extending capabilities using the technology, currently I have 1 exercise physiologist managing all of our home-based patients. So when you really talk about leveraging the technology beyond the walls of your facility, you can deliver exercise prescriptions because we're not supervising anymore. Now we're consulting and we're analyzing, and we're using technology to help us with that. So it has really extended our capability during this time, and is something that makes an easy adjunct to the rest of your programming when you can resume center-based service.
Thank you, Shane. Ashan, what are your perspectives there?
Yeah, our program, because we are very much center-based, we have 2 RNs who do the patient oversight. So they are the ones that that screen the patient initially as they're coming into our program. They escalate any concerns to our medical director, who will provide feedback on a consistent basis, and then based off of the patient acuity, they will assign the patient to either one of our exercise specialists or to our nurse to manage their care throughout the course of the program. And that's just been the best way for us to be highly effective in addressing the needs of our really high risk, high acuity patients with our nursing team, and then our moderate to low risk patients can really progress quickly with our exercise specialists. So we still, everything is very much a team approach, as Shane was mentioning, but we have our RNs in somewhat more of a supervisory role to make sure the plan of care is being executed in the way that that is approved by the medical director.
Great, thank you. One more question from Ginny. She's asked a lot of great ones. A lot of them have answered in the flow. So her question is, do you experience any issues or hesitance with baby boomers and beyond with the use of technology in this manner? And before, Ashan, I have you take the lead on this, I just wanted to say that this is a concern that we see raised over and over again from operators. And when you look at the patients or the members or the end user, those fears rarely materialize as long as you set it up properly and provide the proper approach and planning. So I really appreciate this question because it's a very real concern from an operator perspective dealing with older patients and technology. And we hear it a lot. Just curious, Ashan, what has been your experience with this from a hesitation standpoint? Then we'll pitch it over to Shane.
Yeah, Keith, you kind of mentioned what one of the key factors there is to take the time to actually teach the patient how to use the technology. There's, conversely, there's so many baby boomers on platforms like Facebook or people are using the internet, so it's not that they're not using it at all. It's just really giving them the upfront education that they need to know that this is not a scary or hard to use tool. It's actually really simple to use, especially when you help them set it up as you go through the program. So we have videos in place for them to reference back if they forget. We as our staff take the time up front to show them the app, how to log into the website, what information is important, what information isn't. So from that perspective, it's really easy to use, but it's just all about getting over that barrier of fear that this is another new technology that they're having to adopt. And for us, that's just been education that's built into our program.
Perfect. Thank you. Shane, anything to add?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The way we start out putting people on our platform when we're using all these different tools is day one, we educate. And the other thing that I would add is my expectation of the patients using these platforms isn't that on day one they use every single tool to the 100% most effectiveness. We build it in layers. So it's how do you set up your profile and your account, and what are the initial tools that we get you using? What tools are you using in our facility versus when you're outside of our facility? Which additional tools do you have access to, and how can we leverage that? And we build that in gradually over time based on the individual. So we kind of have a base of technologies that we like to try and use across the board, and then we build in additional layers to the comfort level of the individual to enhance effectiveness of the programming.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you to the group that have signed on really from all over the world. You've asked some amazing questions. Thank you for being so attentive. And Ashan and Shane, thank you again so much for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, and your insights with a worldwide audience today. Jason, thanks, Jot. Thank you. Great job as always.
Thank you very much. Everybody stay healthy and safe.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot.